Hello again. My name is Sam Robinson, and I am the Gnostic Syncretist. Thank you for joining me tonight. In our last several podcasts, we've been going over Gnosticism and the path of Gnosis, as well as the history of suppression behind and around the end of the Gnostic schools, as well as the ancient pagan mystery schools of antiquity, which largely resulted in an intellectual and philosophical dark age in the European continent and Western civilization in general for over 1,000 years, and also the total destruction of most Gnostic texts. So that's what we covered in our last couple of videos. In this video, I want to do something entirely different. Go over something that I'm sure a lot of people would like to better understand, which is the symbolism associated with the esoteric tradition. And so today, I would like to go over the symbolism and try to explain how this stuff works in general. So we're going to go over occult symbols. We are going to cover multiple symbols today to just give an understanding in an abstract way of why the esoteric mystery schools always utilized esoteric glyphs and symbols to relay information, because there's so much that can be encased within a single symbol that is multiple symbols in one, with multiple aspects to it that are philosophically embedded into the glyph. It's what some have called the concept of cosmic principles being encased and manifested within a diagrammatic glyph form, so that you can pass that knowledge down within the symbol without it being destroyed. And only those few initiates or those individuals that can reacquaint themselves with esoteric symbolism will be able to draw out the knowledge contained within the glyph, so that it increases the chances of this information not being lost over the ages, since symbols are much more concrete than texts, whether they're, placed in stone, carved on monuments or temples, or take the form of an amulet or a pendant or a gemstone with carvings upon it. All those things much more likely make it down through the ages to future initiates if your school is destroyed. Thus, this is a way to, almost certainly keep the symbolism alive and keep the knowledge alive contained in the symbolism throughout the centuries to come. So let's go over. Let's see. We're going to go over a specific symbol now. This is the Ouroboros with the two pyramids. Now, in terms of esoteric symbolism, this has enormous meaning, the Ouroboros, as well as the double pyramid. What many may not realize, however, is that this is simply the early form of what's called the Seal of Solomon, which is also called the Star of David. So if you merge the two pyramids, if you took this pyramid, dropped it down, and brought this pyramid up, it would form what's called a Merkaba, or a three-dimensional Star of David. So this is the early prototype of that form. The snake eating its own tail is obviously the ancient Ouroboros, and inherently signifies and symbolizes the cyclical nature of the universe, or the what's often referred to as the law of periodicity, periodic reoccurrence of cycles throughout the ages. And as in Buddhism, they have the different yugas, which there are typically 5, and they repeat themselves cyclically. You also have the idea of cyclical reincarnation, cyclical evolution, followed by stages of, so to speak, de-evolution to then re-evolutionize the being and the matter and the archetypes that are being evolved throughout the cosmic scheme. So another aspect of this ancient symbol that has been around for thousands upon thousands of years is, if you'll notice, obviously one is black and one is white. Well, what does that mean? And what does this signify? Well, according to everything I've read and studied over the last decade or more, the upward pointing pyramid that is facing right side up represents the divine, the spiritual nature of reality. And the lower pointing symbol that is white is matter. So you have spirit and matter, light and darkness, followed by cyclicity. So and also this represents fire and this represents earth. It's because fire represents spirit and earth represents the material plane or matter itself. So when you put the two together, you get a six-sided figure, a hexagonal figure with the circle around it. And the circle represents infinity, cyclicity, the all, the divine one absolute principle, and the 6 aspects of it. Thus, the 6 in 1, 6 plus 1 is 7, and 7 is the divine number, the celestial number of all things. Just like we have 7 aspects of ourselves, and there are 7 planes of existence for each cosmic plane. You have an ether plane, a mental plane, an astral plane, a spiritual plane. Each one of these has 7 aspects to it, each one of those planes. Thus, the number 7 is represented in all these things. Even here, with it not being combined as a form, you have 3 points and 3 points, plus the 7th symbol being the snake eating its own tail. This is one of the ways they encode symbolism into everything that they do. So, we have the snake eating its own tail. We have 2 upward pointing triangles. And one pointing upward, one pointing downward, one dark, one light. The dark one represents matter. The light one represents, the dark one represents spirit. The light one represents matter. Now, you also have a more advanced version of that symbol, which is of a similar nature. All right, then we're going to go to that now. There you go. You have the snake eating its own tail. Again, you have one triangle, the eye, and you have the sun in the middle. Once again, cyclicity of the Trinity. This is the Trinity. And the light in the middle. The one aspect that of the one absolute principle that has 3 aspects to it. It's called the 3-in-1 of the Trimurtian deity, also called the Trinity. It exists in almost every religion, whether it's Buddhism, Christianity, you name it. Whether it's in any one of these religions, there's always a central cosmic divinity that is unknowable, uncognizable, unnameable, that takes 3 aspects, 3 forms, which are really 3 aspects of one thing manifested. And then it has cyclicity and the all-seeing eye. This is another ancient symbol of the Ouroboros with just a singular triangle. And the reason they utilize this is because encased within this singular glyph are all those ideas: periodicity, cycles repeating themselves, triple powers that are really one power with 3 faces or 3 aspects, and then the all-seeing eye of God that's ever watching, and the sun representing the light, the logos, absolute essence of the universe. The logos is probably one of the best ways to actually term this. So, all right, let's go into another symbol, like just like that one. This is much more of a Celtic symbol. Here you have the exact same idea yet again. As you can see, what I'm trying to relay is that within esoteric symbols and esoteric symbolism is the exact same idea in each one of these mystery school traditions. This one happening to be Celtic and Druidic, the Druidic mysteries. You have, once again, a circle, maybe not a snake, but a circle. You have the central thing in the middle, the absolute principle, the logos, the one, the all, the prime mover, who spins, which is how you know that it's cyclical, because it's spinning this way, like that, into manifestation. And it splits into three aspects that still are one principle. Whether it goes this way, or it goes this way, or it goes this way, it's still all the exact same essence in reality. This is emanationism. It is a singularity that is unmanifested, but at the same time manifests three aspects to itself in a cyclical nature that's repeating, but always retains its essence. Because there is only one thing in existence in the universe, which is this absolute principle, this absolute essence or logos, which manifests in all forms of life. It is Brahma and 1,000 manifestations, yet all one, all Brahma, or all logos. This is the same type of symbol as the other one, just drawn in a somewhat different form. You can see what I'm trying to show here. It's that the same idea is encased in every one of these three things I've shown you so far. So, I hope people are following. I hope people are grasping what I'm trying to lay down here. You also have, let's see, the yin yang. You have the yin yang of the Eastern tradition. And what does it represent? Well, this is almost another way of saying it yet again. You have a circle, and then you have two aspects to the circle. Now we're going into a different type of symbolism here. This is not exactly the Ouroboros or the Trimurtian deity. However, what this represents is that manifestation must come about through binaries, through polarity. It's one of the Hermetic principles, the principle of polarity, where to become manifested at all, the one must split into two, the male and the female, the light and the dark, the above and the below, the yin and the yang, male and female. Because each thing that exists must have its antithetical or counter opposite idea or archetype that corresponds to it. So the yin is one and the yang is the other. Light and dark, male and female. And you can interpret it whichever side you want to be, male or female yourself. But the point being, the yin yang is an ancient cosmic symbol of bipolarity manifested from a singularity, yet again. And I think this is, and the sinuous line itself, almost in a way, represents the spiraling nature of how the cosmic manifestation differentiates itself from a polarity into a multipolar world. Differentiation occurs only after the layer of duality is first generated. Yet contained in this binary, this polarity, and the universe that follows, it's all still contained in the one symbol, in the one, the all, the absolute. But for it to start at all, there must be polarity first. So the one falls into two, the two becomes three, the three turns into four, and the three and four make seven. And then the seven plus the original three make 10, which is how the Sephiroth Kabbalistic tree works, which is why there's 10 Sephiroth, yet three primal Sephiroth, with seven at the bottom, three at the top, which are considered to be the supernal Sephiroth. It's the same idea. And I know some of this might be somewhat complicated, but bear with me on this journey here. All right, we're going to go over a little bit more complex symbol, which kind of contains everything at one time. All right. So we've been going over the various symbols that relate to the Ouroboros, the Trinity, and polarity. And as you can see, there's total conceptual cross-fertilization over in these cultures and these mystery schools, because they all utilize similar symbolism or even the same symbolism. And a lot of times the symbolism gets combined into various diagrammatic glyphs, as they call them, which represent many things at one time, as opposed to more simple cosmic concepts or philosophical ideas about the nature of our reality. And here I'm going to show you one of these more complex symbols, which is the one you will see depicted on the book The Kybalion, which is right here behind me in black, sitting on the middle shelf, right behind my head, the Kybalion. This is the symbol on the Kybalion, and it has a circle with a triangle, with a box inside the triangle, and then another circle inside the box, or square, rather. So I want to go over this symbol, and here we go. So this is a more complex symbol. What do we have? Once again, we have the all, the one, the absolute, which is the circle, the biggest circle. Within that, it forms a trinity. And then that trinity, within that, falls into four. There's a square. And then within that square is another smaller circle. And some have called this, in a certain sense, the philosopher's stone, because if you can understand this symbol, there's much knowledge. Because encased within this single glyph is stores of information, to be totally honest. You could interpret it in so many different ways, utilizing these four symbols in this particular diagrammatic glyph pattern. You have the all and the trinity. That's one expression of the symbolism. But the trinity also represents the number three. Number three is the representative number of spirit. And then within spirit, you have the square, and the square is representative of matter. The number four is the four elements, the four seasons, the four corners of the earth, the four angels. Four is the number of the material plane. Three is the number of the more spiritual plane. So 3 and 4 make 7, obviously. And 7 is the number of our principles. We have a spirit, a spiritual soul, a mental body, a life principle, an astral body, an ether body, and a physical body. There's the 7 principles of the human being, or the 7 bodies, or subtle bodies as they're called. You also have 7 hermetic principles. But what you also have in this, besides the macrocosmic aspect of what I was speaking a moment ago, this also represents mankind, or the human individual. So as above, so below. In this singular symbol, you have the inner circle, which is our spirit, or the divine monadic spark of divinity within all of us, the monad. within the physical body, which is the square, as you come out from the center out. And then he has three higher principles, which represents the triangle or the trinity, your spirit, spiritual soul, and higher mental body. And then the square represents the astral body, the ether body, the physical body, and the life principle, which are considered the lower subtle bodies. And then you have the human individual in the middle, and then surrounding it all is the absolute yet again. So once again, this symbol can represent not only the macrocosm, but the microcosmic aspects of our reality, as above, so below, which is that's why it's on the front of his book, because his book is about the seven hermetic principles, and which is called the Kybalion, which was written by William Walter Atkinson over 100 years ago, and has retained its popularity over the years. And it's the book behind me, right here. That's its symbol. Obviously, on his book, it does not have, so to speak, a circumference around the larger circle right here because it's infinite. Its circumference has no end. So that is another way that symbolism is utilized to express multiple conceptual ideas at one time in one glyph that can be reinterpreted to not only understand the microcosm, but also the macrocosm, as above, so below. That's how you know that a diagrammatic esoteric glyph is doing a very good job. If it can do both at the same time. Not every one of them is designed to do that, obviously, but that one is, and that's why it's such a good symbol or collection of symbols. So we also have another form of as above, so below. And really, I just want to reiterate clearly, I'm really just going over the bare bones and the basic essentials of trying to understand esoteric symbolism and what it means and how to roughly interpret these things. You have to start thinking in a symbolic way. It's a kind of mental technique that most of us just don't have. I didn't have it. I had to really study this stuff to understand it. And then your mind starts to think along different lines, in terms of lines of force and extremely abstract conceptual frameworks that allow you to start unfolding symbols in a different way of thinking that we are very unused to in the modern era. So this one, as above, so below. This is the Hermetic principle of correspondence. And so what do you see? You have, obviously, once again, I just think this is a good version of the symbol. You have a spiral, which obviously starts in the middle and then spirals out, right? And then you have above, mirrored by what is below, which means exactly what the principle states it does. As above, so below. All things are self-similar across the planes. The macrocosm is a mirror of the microcosm, and the microcosm is a mirror of the macrocosm. It's like fractals or Fibonacci sequences. And this one thing, using a tree with a spiral aspect going up and down, mirroring each other, perfectly encases and represents the entire idea in simple emblematic form. And just another wonderful example, in my opinion. So, here is a very interesting one that I really enjoy this symbol. It's got the flower of life with the Kabbalistic tree on it. And so you have, once again, the all with the flower of life, sacred geometry, and then you have the Kabbalistic tree. upon the same thing, and as above, so below, also there. So it's just a way of utilizing emblematic symbolism from the esoteric tradition to combine them to delineate various aspects of the cosmos. This is another famous one. This is also as above, so below, called the Seal of Solomon. Not sure who this is. It could be Zeus. Could pick your deity of choice, really. But you have another circle, and then you have a man who is mirrored and merging into himself out of the central symbol. And now, if you'll notice, the man as two apparitions and of mirroring himself does what? He makes a Merkaba. He makes a six-sided star, also contained within a circle. So this represents correspondence. The as above, so below principle represents the six-pointed star within the circle, which is the six attributes within the essence of the one, the monad, with the six subtle bodies, or the six hermetic principles encased in the one principle, or the one containing the six aspects and planes of reality. Whichever one you choose, you'll still be correct. This is why the symbolism is so valuable once you start thinking along symbolic lines of thinking. It's very fascinating to me. So, now we're going to go over an even more interesting one. One of my absolute favorites. This is for Pythagoras. It's called the Tetractys, and it can be utilized in multiple ways as well. But it's so simple, yet represents everything. This is called the Tetractys. And the Tetractys is a very, very prominent symbol of Pythagoreans, but it's also been utilized in the Kabbalah. And I'll show you that in a minute. The Tetractys starts with a single dot, which represents the one, and then the one becomes two, as I've stated before. Becomes two, and then the two become three, and then the three become four, and thus the seven came from the three, which makes 10. Here's your supernal Sephiroth. Here's your seven lower Sephiroth. Or take your choice. Here's the one with the bipolarity, the duad on a cosmic level, macrocosmic level. The one creates the two aspects, the yin and the yang, which then makes the trinity, and the trinity makes the material plane. Or you have this being the trinity, which manifests all the seven lower planes. Or you have your one human principle, the monad, excuse me, which has a spiritual soul and spiritual body. And the Trinity is encased within them, those seven. So there's so many ways to interpret the Tetractys and utilize it as a means for meditation and abstract thinking. It's really amazing, to be totally honest, how much you can utilize this singular symbol, which was made by Pythagoras. The decad, with the one becoming two, the three, the four, and the four with the three make the seven, and the seven plus the three make the 10. And it's really one containing all the 10 at the same time, just like in the Kabbalah. Or to show another way this is utilized, which really fascinates me when I saw this for the first time. Here's another way of doing it for the Kabbalist. You have, these are Hebrew letters, and you have the Yod, then you have Yod Hey. So these are the ways you spell the name of Yod Hey Vav Hey, or Yahweh, YHVH. So this is Y H, This is YHV, and this is YHVH. And each letter in Hebrew stands for a number. It doubles. The Hebrew language doubles as mathematical symbols as well. So the yod is 10, which is this symbol up here at the top. 10. It also represents in the Kabbalah the spiritual fire or the highest celestial plane. He is 5. So you have 10, 10 and 5, 10, 5. And then what is this? This is vow, which means 6. And then you can say you have 10, 5, 6, 5. That's 21. Plus 10, 5, and 6. It's 16. 10 and 5, and then 10. Well, so you have 4 10s, 4 5s, or 3 5s, 2 6s, and 1 5. What does this add up to? This is why these things are so fascinating to me. Well, 5 plus 12 plus 15 plus 40 equals 72. Well, what does 72 represent? 72 in Judaism, as well as in Kabbalistic concepts, is the number related to the name of the deity. 72 is the name of God, or the 72 names of the one God. So within this singular glyph, you not only have the tetractys, which I was just showing you a moment ago in dot form, but then you have the Hebrew letters put in their place instead. So the 1 makes 2, the 2 makes the 3, and the 3 makes the 4. And then all together, they still represent just the 1, and the 1 has 72 names. The 72 names of the single divine logos, which is right here. Once again, this is what I mean by the universality of utilizing esoteric symbolism when it comes to abstract thinking. There's so many ways to interpret and utilize it for spiritual growth. It's pretty amazing, really. Now we're going to go to my now we'll go to my favorite symbol in the world, obviously, which is a symbol of theosophy, which contains so many symbols at one time that you could explain so much. You could explain almost the entirety of Blavatsky's theosophical ideas through the one symbol glyph. So here we go, and this will conclude our talk for today. The symbol of theosophy itself. So this is a complex symbol, obviously. You have the snake eating its own tail. Obviously represents cyclicity or the law of periodicity. You have the swastika, which is a symbol that needs to be gone over all by itself, really. But you also have the 2 triangles, like we saw in the beginning. The one pointing up represents spirit. The one pointing down represents matter. And in the middle, you have the Egyptian Ankh, which I could do a whole bunch just on this one symbol as well. So all this together really sums up the essence of the theosophical philosophy, as well as theosophical cosmology. Because within this singular glyph, theosophic emblem, are all the root races, all this periods of evolution, all the rounds and globes and evolutions of the monadic spirit encased in vessels, cyclically and repeatedly changing form into ever denser forms of manifestation as the earth further densifies, and we with it. All that is encased in this singular glyph of theosophy, which is why I like this glyph so much, and what probably why she chose to create it. So, I mean, not only does it encompass a form of total comparative and universal religion, because it brings in this aspect, it brings in the snake, it brings in, the Jewish tradition, it brings in the Buddhist tradition, it brings in the Egyptian tradition. And then it says there's no religion higher than truth, which I could not agree with more. So within this singular item is really everything. I've often stared at this symbol for long periods of time, just tracing different ideas and pulling different concepts out of it that I've already read about in, say, the secret doctrine of theosophy. So this symbolism is everything. And one of the ways the elite psychospiritual engineers, social engineers, occult sorcerers of consciousness in our reality, one of their methodologies and techniques of control is to utilize symbolism all the time without us ever being aware of what symbols mean or into being utterly symbol illiterate in general across the population. Now, that's probably been the case for most of history. However, the possibility to study these things exists now. And it behooves people to actually study these things, especially if they're spiritually minded and interested in the esoteric mystery school traditions and Gnosticism and Hermeticism and Theosophy and Anthroposophy and all the rest, even Freemasons. But encased in that single symbol, you have everything. So symbolism really matters a lot. People, really matters a lot. People, hear me. Symbols can contain so much information in such a small form that can easily be a storehouse for knowledge to pass down through the ages. And you can draw it back out again once you start to think in this kind of abstract way and philosophical way to symbolism. I mean, it's the amount of information you can draw from just the theosophical symbol alone is incredible to me. So that's all for tonight. I'm going to go over some more things later. All right, let's take the Ankh for instance. The Ankh, for all intents and purposes, clearly looks like a human being. It's a man. It's two arms. It's got one going down leg, two arms, and then what looks like a head. Well, the way this is explained in the Secret Doctrine is very fascinating to me, and this is how I'll end in this video. If you start with a circle, being the all, the absolute, and then you put a dot in it, which is the singularity or the logos, the dot within the circle, which is sun symbolism, Saturn symbolism, whatever you want to refer to it. It's also the symbol of the first manifestation. Well, the first manifestation, its next iteration in symbolic form, is the dot in the circle turning into a line going horizontally. What does that represent? Well, now it's cut in half. The circle's cut in half represents binary or polarity. The one has fallen into two. Well, if you continue down this road of evolving symbolism, you end up with what? You cross it over. You make a cross. So now it's 4. But another way to represent the 4 and the 1 falling in to manifestation from a binary on down is to draw a circle with a cross, partial cross. And the straight line in the middle, which looks like the arms, represents the yin yang or the polarity of reality, the light and dark, the male and female, the two counter opposites, while the head represents the one still, the absolute, the circle, which becomes 2. And then the 2 do what? They fall into matter. That's the leg going down. They fall into matter. So you have the line, which is 2, and then that trinity, that's still really just the circle at the top, the 1, goes straight down into manifestation and differentiation and the material plane at the bottom. And this is how it's explained in the Secret Doctrine, how this one symbol represents all those cosmologically abstract ideas, all encased in just the Egyptian Ankh. Or take the swastika. I know a lot of people don't like the swastika, but there's the old version of it, which goes a different way than the Nazis. In the swastika, with a circle around it, like you have in Theosophy, you have the 1. This is the same idea I was just mentioning just a second ago of manifestation. You have the 1, which is the circle originally. Then you have a dot in the middle. There's a central point in the middle of the swastika. And then they have a leg and a leg, which represents not only the bipolarity, but the quaternary, which is the 4, which means the material plane. So you have the all, with the central dot, the logos, becomes 2, 3, and then 4, and then it starts to spin. It's a spinning wheel, the wheel of samsara, Thor's hammer, as they also call it, the swastika, which represents the fall of spirit into matter, into cyclical periodicity and manifestation. All that is contained in the singular symbol of the rotating swastika. I mean, it fascinates me how they can contain so many abstract ideas on cosmology into a single symbol. So that's all I'm going to go over tonight. We'll go over some more of these later, but I feel like it behooves me to try to explain to people the nature of esoteric symbolism and its meaning and its method for utilizing it in abstract thinking and spiritual development. So once again, my name is Sam Robinson. Thank you for watching, and we'll be seeing you soon.